Namecheap announced that they were blocking Russian sites from from the yeah, from access to the
All right, we are live. Uh,
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to the Permissionless Software Foundation Technical Steering Committee meeting. Today is March 2nd, 2022. I'm joined by all these lovely people. Let's go ahead and do a quick round of introductions. I'll start. I'm Chris Troutner. I founded the Permissionless Software Foundation, and I'm grateful for all the participation of all these brilliant minds in the room here, and several that are not in the room with us today, unfortunately. Aaron Shoemaker, you want to give an intro?
yeah, my name is Aaron Shoemaker. I work with 3D, NFT, 360 stuff in the permissionless software and developing in that technology direction.
Yeah, go ahead, Cool Cleaner.
Hi, Aaron Sundman. I've been a big fan of the Permissionless Software Foundation ever since I just found you online. I feel like the big thing here is innovation has to be permissionless if it's going to make a difference. Otherwise, you're going to get stymied by governments or strongmen, or I often will now just call them warlords. Anything that says, if I can control the surroundings around you, I can stop you. The individual sovereignty is what's important. And so supporting permissionless software is why I'm up here, and I'm enjoying being part of it.
Thanks. Yeah, go ahead, Stoyan.
My name is Stoyan Zhekov, and I sometimes help with the JavaScript libraries on the PSF. It's all from me.
Go ahead, Sam.
Sam, a PSF supporter, and I'm maintaining the wallet service for the IPFS.
Yeah, very appreciated. Very appreciated. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Bring up the agenda if I can. There we go. You guys can see my screen? Okay, great. So as always, our agendas are on GitHub, and they can be accessed later if anybody's watching this recording. They're on github.com under the Permissionless Software Foundation GitHub group in a repository called TSC for Technical Steering Committee. We file them under the Issues tab, and so this is the one for today. And so as every time we get together, this is really an opportunity for us to celebrate our sort of technical achievements. between the meetings. And then once we get through the agenda, we'll just open it up to a roundtable discussion where we can talk about news or tech or anything. Okay, so to start at the top with the PSF core software, which includes the BCH API, which is our REST API, BCH.js, which is our JavaScript SDK, the Gatsby theme BCH wallet, which is our Gatsby theme for building web wallets, IPFS Cord, which is I'm going to talk about that a bit today, that keeps all of our infrastructure communicating over IPFS, and the PSF SLP indexer, which is a recent addition, which is the new SLP token indexer. So just to start at the top here, one of the things that got broken after a while is this sweep feature on wallet.fullstack.cash. So this allows people to store Bitcoin Cash and tokens on a paper wallet, either for cold storage or to give to someone else, which is a great way to onboard people because they don't need to know anything. You can just hand them this piece of paper and be like, here, when you're ready to learn more, the coins are here for you. And so the sweep is what lets you remove them from the paper wallet and put them back into your active web wallet, and then, to do things with them. So that's now restored. And you guys, at any point, feel free to interrupt me. I'm just going to go through these, but I love to be interrupted and get a little more detail. Dependencies have been updated and vulnerabilities updated in Gatsby. Okay, so Gatsby theme BCH wallet is our Gatsby theme. So anybody who has ever built a Gatsby website, they can just plug in our theme. They get basic wallet functionality, and they can get going. And then BCH wallet starter is a Gatsby starter. So if that already has that theme built into it. So if you want to start your own web wallet, you can just if you go through the Gatsby documentation, there's a command that you can run to basically clone the wallet starter, and you're off and running with the fully functional web wallet that you can start hacking on. And so what we've been doing is, among other things, is Daniel just went through and updated all the NPM dependencies and looked at all the vulnerabilities, and we tried to fix as many of those as we can. So that's just kind of housekeeping. And so those two packages also use free bch.fullstack.cache. So this is the community, as opposed to the fullstack.cache services, which is a paid commercial service. This is our community Web3 infrastructure. So Sam's contributing to this. Cool Cleaner, Aaron is contributing to this. I'm contributing to this. So eventually, this URL will be a little smarter, where the back end behind it will basically automatically detect what is the best backend service to use at that moment, and so it'll proxy, or what do you call that? Load balance. It'll load balance across all the available infrastructure on the network. And so yeah, pretty excited about that. It's not quite there yet. Right now, it's just fixed on one server, but that's the goal. Also, these web wallets and this infrastructure has been tested on a Raspberry Pi. So you don't need a very heavy-duty computer to get started with web wallet development. And also, one of the things that we've not been able to do with fullstack.cache or previously has been come up with an Android app. Everybody wants an app, iPhone or an Android app for our web wallet. And the reason we haven't been able to do that is because we can't prevent abuse, basically. And we can't scale in the face of abuse, because somebody has to pay for this expensive Web 2 service at fullstack.cache. So by moving to the Web 3 architecture, we now have an Android APK file, and I have the file here. It's a little confusing. Let's see, I think it's this one here. Yeah, so if you follow that link, it'll take you here, and there's a download button halfway down over here on the right. And that's where you could, if you navigate, basically, if you click on that link or manually navigate to this repo with your iPhone or with your phone, with your Android phone, you can click that download button, and it's going to give you some warnings, but you can download and install that APK. And let me see if I can show what it looks like. I mean, it just looks like the web wallet.
I got it
Um,
working.
What
but-
are the advantages of using this
Oh.
package
Uh,
on the website?
I can't show it because it's green and so it's the desktop's not showing up. Yeah, so that's a good question, Stoyan. The advantage is that when you bring up the web wallet in a browser on the phone, there's a little bit of a wait time because it's like a 10 megabyte download. Every time you try to access your web wallet, you got to go through this waiting period, which can be really annoying. And so installing the app, you skip that. The only waiting you have to wait for is the actual network connection to like update your wallet's balance. And that is also pretty slow right now, but that's I'm going to talk about a few things in a minute about how that experience is going to speed up significantly. So that's the main advantage. But also really the attractive point here is that everything is open source and it's there. So if some business wants to make their own white label version of the web wallet and produce an iPhone and Android app for their little web wallet, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to fork it and white label it for their own purposes.
Everybody wants an app.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think this is a good time to bring up the idea, and we haven't talked about a lot, but this idea of composability. When somebody writes something, it can be reused over and over by anybody around the world. And that's what's making the open source world so valuable, as well as, I mean, you have to end up having some infrastructure, to your point from earlier, Chris. It has to actually run somewhere. And if we write it, or you and Sam and Daniel and them were writing this stuff, anyone can pick it up and make amazing things with it. So anyway, I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. That needs to be said. Okay, so going back to the agenda. Okay, so
Sorry,
oh,
just
go ahead.
a quick question. Are there like messaging features in the app, sending secure messages from this web wallet, not web application?
Not yet, but they're planned. So what we have is end-to-end encrypted messaging in the CLI wallet, in the command line wallet, the PSF BCH wallet. And so, and that's working. And so the thing that needs to be done is to just build the user interface around that. And so like we have in the past, this Android example wallet is pretty much going to stay the way it is. Any additional functionality is going to be developed as plugins. And so we actually have, we had that developed in message.fullstack.cache, but that website's not functional anymore because it just hasn't been maintained. So that's definitely on the roadmap, is to add a plugin where you can do end-to-end encrypted messaging. But it is available for any developers who want to, play with it and help us. I mean, anybody is welcome to take up that torch, and I'm sure we can make some PSF token grants for anybody who wants to build that functionality, build that web wallet plugin that is going to be needed.
Stoyan, are you talking about just because of the stuff that's going on in the world right now and Ukraine and Russia?
No, because how to see, we had several like wallets before, with messaging, without messaging. I just wanted to ask on which one is based the application. About the worldwide situation is like, yeah, it's always tough. I just needed to know, not needed, but I wanted to ask what wallet it's based on, just to know. And since other wallets, like messaging becoming very essential part of the wallets, like even the explorers now start adding messaging to the token owner. So you go to some token page and you can talk to the owner of this token. So it's very, communication is important. That's why I wanted to ask, how this wallet will help us with this problem.
I will say one of the things I noticed in ETH Denver is a lot of these people, encrypted messaging is a huge part of what they're trying to develop. I don't know what they're using for encryption, but you know, a lot of these protocols are trying to implement the same thing. So, you know, everybody seems to be going down the same path.
Yeah, and you know, like that's the thing. We have the tech and the low level stuff. All we need at this point is someone to step up and build the user interface for it. And actually, I'll give a shout out to CashTab, which is the web wallet on the eCash chain. It does have built-in end-to-end encrypted messaging on there. Kind of a neat feature, and they're using the exact. I believe they're actually using our code. Okay, so put out a series of posts this last month on the fullstack.cash Twitter feed and in the different Telegram channels that we are going to deprecate SLPDB, the older token indexer, and basically move all of our infrastructure over to the new indexer. That is in process. There's a couple things that I know are going to break, and just in the last few days, we found a couple minor bugs with the token indexer. So everybody should be actively moving away from SLPDB and moving to the new PSF SLP indexer. So yeah, so that sort of transition period is well underway right now. And this is going to be a rocky month because a lot of things are going to break as we basically SLPDB is like 4 to 6 times more expensive to operate. I mean, whether you're talking about computational power running at home or whether you're talking about paying for a cloud server, either way, it's about 6 times more expensive. So that's the main reason why we're moving away. Also, it's unreliable, and the new indexer is maintained by us. So if there's a bug, we can directly, deal with it rather than SLPDB, which no one in wider community has been able to maintain.
I think the ability to blacklist and whitelist, I mean, you've built in a lot of things that allow individuals to customize how much power they want to put behind it and how much effort. So right there, you've already given a lot more to the community just because of that kind of capability as well.
Thank you. Yeah. That the blacklist feature was something that was never added to SLPDB, and it's already proving to be giving operators the ability to control, how much computational energy they want to give to a token, and whether or not that's acceptable or not, and have individual control over that is already proving to be pretty valuable. There is a bug. I actually just fixed it this morning in the indexer around the document hash field that Daniel discovered yesterday. So I'm already indexing, re-indexing it with the fix, but the document hash field, most people don't use it, and that's why we didn't notice it right away. But we do use it for this new mutable token or mutable data token spec, which allows for token icons. So we're going to be using that a lot more. So yeah, we just discovered that today or yesterday.
When do you think that'll be finished indexing? I'd like to get that version of the,
I'm hoping that it'll be done in 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
Because what I'm able to do is use this transaction map, so I don't have to brute force index every transaction in the blockchain. I already have a map of all the SLP transactions, and so I can just it's a much faster indexing process because you already know you basically can exclude all the transactions in the blockchain that you're not interested in.
It was interesting to me to see while I was out at Denver, just like everybody's looking at Ethereum and the cost of Ethereum, and then here is SLP, which is incredibly cheaper. Like people just yesterday were like, I minted an NFT for 77 cents on Loopring, and I'm like, I minted one for like a tenth of a cent last year, and not only that, but the mutable protocol, like having people understand the ledger as opposed to smart contract is a little bit difficult, I think, but both have use cases.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and on that topic, boy, where did the very first thing I meant to talk about. Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up because it reminded me. On the PSF video page, so psfoundation.cash/video, I've now added. So this video that we're recording right now, that's going to go in the latest media section. So anybody who wants to watch older meetings, this is where those are going to go. I just added this beginner video section, and I kind of forgot what we were going to talk about. But I talk about how to work with tokens, how to store them on paper wallets and bring them back. Dang, I forgot. I was going to tie that into what you just said, but now it's escaping me.
Oh, I was talking about the difference between a smart contract token and one that's written into the ledger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
being
I don't know.
the simple ledger and simple ledger.
Yeah. So these beginner ones are super basic. I've been trying to show them to all like the non-technical people that I can, and I've got some good feedback. I'm actually going to cut some of the content in some of them just because but anyways, there's these videos, and then the beginner JavaScript section focuses on Raspberry Pi 4 or the Pi 400. They're basically the same. And how to run all of the software in our cache stack. So let me dive into that. So this is from one of the blog articles on the PS Foundation website, just sort of a blow up version of our cache stack. So you got the global backend down below this line, and that runs on a bigger computer like Sam and Aaron are running. And then everything above this line should run on a Raspberry Pi. And so there's this service consumer that essentially attaches to the IPFS network and can talk to all those other global backend servers. And then the phone app is the APK file that we were just talking about. So that talks to this consumer, and then which proxies the data across the IPFS network to one of the global backend servers. And so these videos about the Raspberry Pi, they run everything above this IPFS network line, and that includes the web wallet and developing the web wallet, white labeling it for your own business. And then I've started to flesh out this OPSEC video section. So I've got one on how to install end-to-end encrypted chat, one on how to install and use the Cache Fusion to anonymize your Bitcoin Cash with Electron Cash Wallet. The next one I'm going to be adding is going to be using Bitcoin Cash to create anonymous email to service. And so I'll be adding on those. Just I feel like this OPSEC stuff is like increasingly important, and I don't really see anybody producing how-to videos on how to sign up for anonymous email, how to sign up for an anonymous server, how to anonymize your money, how to send up end-to-end encrypted chat, those sorts of things that seems like more and more people need these days.
I've heard a lot about this. I see the XMPP there. That's a protocol, right? For private messaging, or you could use. I hear you can use it for. It has a lot of use cases. The
Jabber protocol.
Jabber, yeah.
Jabber, yeah, right. It was the first like a bridge between America Online and other like messaging services. So it's like a chat, but all communications are in XML, like HTTP file running around. But it's very, very flexible. That's why everybody is using it, because you can plug in for your own like services. You can make it more secure, make it like a chat or whatever. So it's a great protocol, just a little noisy. They even tried to replace it with JSON, I think, but I'm not sure if it was successful.
Yeah, but it's pretty old school. It's like 20 years old, the protocol. Yeah. And it's sort of making a comeback in that, well, like no one needs to have an argument about what it is or how it should work, because it's 20 years old at this point. And so, yeah, what I show here is how to run an application called Pigeon, which runs on all operating systems, which uses that protocol. And then there's a plugin called Off the Record, which end-to-end encrypts it and then deletes the messages when you close the app. Okay, good. I'm glad you reminded me of that, Aaron, of those videos. I skipped over that part. Go ahead, Dwayne.
No, when we opened the floor, I wanted to ask you about the matrix. What was the other protocol? But yeah.
Oh, well, you know, hopefully, I don't know much about it, so hopefully you guys can
Yeah.
school me on that. But yeah, I would love to talk about that. Okay, so moving on to the next section, JSON RPC over IPFS and the pay to write database. That's IPFS Cord is this JavaScript library, and it's what allows, it's sort of the secret sauce that lets this communication happen over the IPFS network, that allows the local backend to talk to the global backend. It's like the core component. And so it's being heavily refactored right now. Basically what happened is I was trying to replicate everything on the Raspberry Pi, and I noticed that running this IPFS BCH service consumer, which is like the local backend, was just taking way too much CPU power. And after really digging into it, I realized it's OrbitDB. And OrbitDB, before I say what I'm about to say, I just want to say that I love OrbitDB. It's a peer-to-peer database. I think it was the first one. There are other ones now. There's like Ceramic that is basically a peer-to-peer database. There's Textile Threads, which is a peer-to-peer database. Those are both like much more complex than OrbitDB. OrbitDB is very simple, and we use it in the pay-to-write database, and that's a perfect application for it. But in IPFS Cord, what I was doing is the primary communication medium that all the nodes on our IPFS network use is PubSub, publish subscribe protocol. But because those IPFS nodes are like constantly adjusting their connection and trying to make the most optimal connection, what frequently happens is when one node sends a message to another node over PubSub, the node will like just temporarily be disconnected and won't receive that message. So we needed some way for the other nodes to be like, hey, here's a message for you that arrived while you were gone. And so I was using OrbitDB for that, but that's not really what OrbitDB is intended for, because it's intended to be a database. And so every new node was causing all the other nodes. Hey, Aaron, I can still hear you a little bit. I don't know if you can hear me. Anyways, all the other nodes on it was basically, it's not scalable. It was causing this spike in CPU usage, like way more CPU usage than we should have been using. And it got worse with the more nodes on the network. So I've removed OrbitDB, and I've written, it's actually not a very complex, feature there, just to this ability for other nodes to be like, hey, this message came in for you while you were gone. So I already wrote that, and it's working great. And I've already tested it into the stack and everything's working. So the only thing left to do at this point is write unit tests. And I'm really excited about this because it's going to make our entire Web3 stack much more scalable. This is at least a 10x improvement in speed and reduction in CPU usage. So I'm very excited about this. Yeah, so that's
great.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the proof will be in the pudding. I've only been able to do preliminary tests, so I'm excited to actually roll it out and then see what problems arise. But yeah, so that's that. The pay-to-write database has been updated to use the new SLP indexer. That's one of the things I was worried about breaking as we phased out the old indexer. That's an update. And then finally, let me just give an update on the token DEX. So as I've said before, so Avalanche gave us a grant to develop a DEX on their chain. eCash gave us a grant to develop a DEX on their chain. And then the BCH community gave us a grant to build the new SLP indexer. And so Gary has been working on the Avalanche side of things. We're doing that first because they gave us the money first. He's completed the accept phase. So there's 3 phases in a trade. There's the make, the take, and the accept. And so he's completed the third phase. So we now have end-to-end tests. If anybody wants help, I can show them how to set up a development environment. And so you can make an offer, someone else can take an offer, and then the maker like accepts the offer, and then the trade is done, and it's trustless and atomic. And so we have that going.
That's
but
huge.
it is huge. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's really good progress to have this whole thing. So now Daniel's building a user interface for that. And Gary is now working on the sell side. So that's on the buy side. So right now we have the sell side. So someone wanting to sell tokens, but this whole process should also work if someone wants to put out like, I want to buy tokens for this much. So that's the next step is getting that to work. And so I'm also going to start porting all of this code over to Bitcoin Cash, both the user interface and the backend software, as a medium-term step to porting it over to the eCash blockchain, and then we'll have it on all 3 blockchains.
That's something that when I was out talking to all these developers at ETH Denver, and I'm talking to some people that are like CEOs and founders, like they have no idea this is coming. No idea. They're talking about working on the Avalanche blockchain. I'm like, did you know there's a token DEX coming? They're like, no, this is crazy. Like they're working on this interoperability that's already happening, and I'm hearing people talking about working on Avalanche a lot, and they just had no idea that there's a token DEX coming. There's going to be trustless swaps of tokens that way, and what that's going to mean for these gaming communities, because a lot of them are doing gaming stuff. That's going to be huge for the gaming side. But the DEX, is it going to be on the X chain or the C chain? Yeah.
Particularly with Avalanche, there's been several DEXs launched recently on the C chain. And what's interesting is, so the old way, when people use the word DEX, they're generally referring to a DEX on Ethereum, like Sushi Swap, where there's a liquidity pool involved. And these DEXs only work. I mean, the reason they weren't built before they were built is because this concept of the liquidity pool ended up being like a crucial thing. But now DEXs are starting to come out where there is no liquidity pool, and you can do different things like set limit and buy orders, and there's less slippage, because that's one of these problems with the liquidity pool is like a lot of slippage. And so yeah, not only are we going to have the only DEX on the X chain, to my knowledge, there also won't be any need for liquidity pools. It's going to be completely peer-to-peer. And so it'll be more like a traditional order book where you have like, if you were a trader, you would set up like, okay, I'm going to set, this token at this price, and then more tokens at this price plus 1%, and then more tokens at this price plus 2%. And so you sort of, if you've ever seen an order book, it looks like a V, where there's all these buys and sells, and you get these sell walls. So it's going to be very much like a traditional order book. And so that behavior, people coming from the actual like stock trading world, trying to work with DeFi, it's very confusing for them, because this concept of the order book and the slippage and the liquidity pool, these are all brand new concepts. And so I'm hoping that this DEX that we're building is going to feel much more natural for people who are used to trading stocks.
Yeah, it's there's so much going on in the PSF. I'm like, when I was out there, it's like, Permissionless Software Foundation, you got to check it out. Like, everything you're talking about, it's being done,
Yeah.
Check this stuff out.
The other thing that history will be the judge of this, but like these DEXs on the C chain and on Ethereum and stuff, because they need these liquidity pools, and because no one really knows who's running what infrastructure, and then Infura goes down and everybody goes down with it. Like, I don't know how actually censorship resistant a lot of that stuff is. But the way we're building this DEX, at least in the Bitcoin Cash and the eCash side, and it's certainly like possible with the Avalanche too, is you can run everything on your own computer. Like, you are not dependent on anybody but yourself, just your internet connection. And no one can stop you from trading. or seeing other people's offers. And so that's the thing I'm really, really excited about. And I think that's what the world needs right now is,
Yeah.
you know, the ability to trade peer to peer.
Yeah, totally. And getting people used to that and used to that idea. I'm excited that the DEX is getting up and going because I'm really gonna try to push for like some farmers markets to utilize SLP tokens this summer.
Nice. Yeah, I'm planning on doing the same thing. So let's work together on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the agenda, guys. I'll open up the floor to anything we want to talk about at this point, news or tech, or you got any burning things you want to talk about, Stoyan?
Not particularly something.
I got something.
I issued the free BSD collection. If you want free free NFT on Polygon, you can get one.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think
don't know.
Stoyan, you were working on this P2 the P2SH for a while, right? I've been looking into that for a while, and I got a
Yeah.
little. I think I'm like this close to broadcasting a P2SH 3 of 5. So
Oh, really?
I think
Share
but-
some sources because I was stuck in the
yeah,
middle.
it's pretty tough. But here, let me see.
Well, maybe you guys can educate me because this is a very foggy thing, but I seem to recall that like the multi-sig that I think Stoyan that you found in the BCHJS source code, I think that's using the actual multi-sig op code, but I think most multi-signature wallets are P2SH where they're using a script rather than the actual multi-sig op code. If I'm wrong about that, I really want someone to correct me.
the P2SH is basically the P2MS, the multisig, but it's a hash of that. So when you want to unlock your tokens, you provide the hash of that script along with all the signatures. But the tricky part's getting all the index, the val, and
Okay.
everything has to be ordered like perfectly. I was able to. I created the 5 wallets. I think I could share the screen maybe.
Yeah, let me enable that.
Here we go.
There you go. You should be able to share now.
So I got this. Let's see.
Man, I would love to. We can't see. Oh, there you go. I would love to get some multi-sig examples in the BCHJS examples repository.
So here's what this is the you see down here, this is the app. You see right down here? You see the app 3, and these are all the public keys. So this came from here. And then we get this came from here, from this P2MS to assembly. And then we get this script here. You get you get the hash of this, of the app codes. And then from this output script, we get the address. It's called I'll show you. You see here, this is
Okay.
when it starts with a P. I noticed it
With a
starts with
P
a
instead of a Q.
P. That means, yeah, it's so like I got all the 5 public keys from these whiffs. I have
Okay.
them hidden over here, and then we put these whiffs into into the script. So I got to the point where I put all these signatures with the public keys, added the so I sent this P2SH address here $1, and then I was trying to spend that output by providing the P2SH along with the redeem script. So here's I got this is what I got with the raw transaction. Where is it? Oh, here we are. You see this? So I got the transaction built, which was this over here. You see the the multi-sig, public keys array, signatures,
Oh.
and so it says the
You have still one missing piece maybe from the message that you this is
this
throwing.
this is a broadcast message. So when I tried broadcasting the transaction, it says I got the script evaluated, but I still ended up with I think a 0 on the stack, which means that it's not valid. So think that's my
Yeah.
next hurdle. So I think I'm missing an opcode in there. Maybe it might be that 0, that bug in the, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think maybe if you put, because the message itself, every script must finish with true,
yeah.
but this one just maybe didn't throw anything. So if you put op 0, maybe it will fix the stuff.
Uh,
Or up
Yeah.
one.
If
Oh,
you share
yeah,
this
so that-
code, I can take a look.
I'll
Is
s-
this
I'll-
some GitHub or?
I'll send you a copy of the file.
Oh, thank you. Woohoo.
Yep, that's it.
Man, I'm
was
really
it.
excited that you two are
Yeah,
working on this. I mean, I want to work on this. I just don't have the bandwidth to. So I'm really glad you guys are working on
Well,
this.
I was researching it, and I figured, I want to learn this stuff, so I'm just gonna look at the transaction.
You know,
the,
so Gabriel Cardona created Bitbox, which is what BCHJS is built from, and I don't think he ever fully got all this stuff working. I remember him telling me that there's bugs.
I went to I did some research on it, and I seen that a lot of the stuff came from Bitcoin JS. So
Yeah.
I went over there, and they've been keeping up their, so they have some real nice P2SH, like everything is like well documented, and you could kind of learn how they're doing it. So I kind of took some of their cues and trying to see where where I could take some of
Yeah.
their examples and use them here.
If that's easier, I mean, if that's what to get it working, if that's better, like do that, because we can always, because I believe Gabriel forked their code, and then we had this bifurcation of these two code paths. So ours has not kept up to date with theirs. So if theirs is easier and better documented, we can always pull their code into our code.
Yeah, because some functions, like the one that you was showing now, they was just removed from the BCH library, and they was capsulated in some transaction builder methods, I think, or transaction methods, but they just removed the whole code from the library. That's why I was struggling to find what exactly from Bitcoin became like is still available. But yeah, if you make this work, it's, how to say, all credits going to you. I was just like stuck in the middle with my research.
I wasn't sure if I could actually do it, so I just kind of wanted to study it, to like learn it. So I'll
Yeah, just send me a copy. I will take a look.
Yeah.
Maybe I can find something, but it seems pretty much almost working. Maybe just one throwing the true. Also, maybe there is you can check maybe your opcodes working on this bit. What was this?
Bitcoin JS, I think. Is that what it was, Sam?
Yeah, that's a
No,
library.
I mean, there was some online playground where you can put these Fortnite codes, and it will. I will just found it and send it to you.
I found one called Block Cipher, but that was mostly works with BTC and Litecoin, where you put the hex in there, and it tells you if the transaction will be valid.
I will check and send it later, because now we'll just lose time. But yeah, nice.
Very
Send
cool.
me a copy on the file if
I'll send you a copy.
yeah, and we can figure maybe if there's something. But it seems very much working. So yeah.
Almost there.
It looks good. Yeah, there's a couple other things where there's like two, I think, script.encode functions. There's like encode and then encode 2 in BCHJS, and one of them works with SLP and one of them works with other like that. This is kind of where we're at with BCHJS. It's like a lot of stuff works. Pretty much the only thing that doesn't work is multi-sig. And so, but multi-sig is a really desirable thing. So I would be totally fine with creating a whole new library class in BCHJS just for multi-sig, where we could bring in like the Bitcoin JS code or whatever we need to do in order to get multi-sig working. Once somebody figures it out.
Cool.
That's good stuff. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously there's so much going on in the world. I kind of don't want to misstep, but I mean, I think we're all aware of how just between the Canadian truckers and the Russia-Ukraine thing going on and all the everybody's sanctioning everybody. I think it's just so clear to everyone how important.
I kept thinking about the PSF when I seen the GoFundMe was taken from the. I wanted to tell me, what have you heard of a Flip Starter or PSF? There was a lot of opportunity there for this technology.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys noticed, but Flip Starter, which is like Kickstarter but on Bitcoin Cash, and they raised some funds. It was I didn't donate to it because they didn't say like who was collecting the funds or where the funds were going. Like a lot of really important information. You just kind of had to trust it, which kind of, why would you do it on Flipstarter then? But it's just so technically, it's just so technically difficult to work with Flipstarter. And I get it. I understand, like at a high level, like because it's using like actually low level script programming in those things, so that's why it's so difficult to work with. But
yeah, and you don't just want it on a domain, because then it can be shut down the DNS, right? So there has to be some sort of low level connection to it. So it makes sense, but if it's hard to use.
Yeah, so I just thought it was noteworthy that this was exactly the type of condition where Flipstarter was built to shine, but it's just so technically complex it didn't. Like people just, it's so hard for people to figure out how to how to use it, how to donate to it.
Well, what's interesting about the recent things that have happened is it's not been clear to people in the first world why this is important. It has just not been clear. People just think, why do I need that? I got my Venmo, So it's really interesting to see all of this play out, because now we're seeing use cases. We're actually seeing something that there is no other mechanism to help these people. You can get money directly in the hands of somebody who needs cash worldwide. So it is kind of exciting to just, I hate to say that because this is all horrible stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But it really hasn't been something that people have seen. If you live here, you just say, why do I care? most people don't see the need. So in some ways it's starting to crack that a little bit.
Well, the mask is slipping. That's what's happening.
Literally. And
it's always been there. It's always been that way. It's really easy to look back into like the 50s and 60s if you're an American in the 70s and be like, oh, things were better back then. But we were still invading countries back then. We were still fighting proxy wars. We were still printing money to infinity. All the same things were going on then that are going on now. It's just now we have recourse in other options. And so I thought it was funny too, though, with the trucker thing, where they're like, oh, we're going after Bitcoin accounts, and almost like this propaganda of, oh, you can't even go into crypto because we're going to seize your Bitcoin. And there's so many people that I know that have no idea about how Bitcoin works. They think that you hold digital coins in a purse, and they're like, oh, the government can take that. And it's like, no, they can't. They can go after an exchange, and they can try to blacklist an address, but that doesn't mean that you can't transfer from that address to somebody that's willing to accept payment from you. Like, they're really
it's been
trying
an excellent opportunity for education, because everybody's been like, well, what's up with crypto? If the government can seize it, it's like, oh, I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah, they really can't, And I get the same questions when people are like, how do they steal all this Bitcoin? Well, they didn't technically steal a person's Bitcoin. An exchange had their keys in a hot wallet, and they stole the keys from the exchange. That's what happened.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
but it's very easy for people that don't know the technology to be like, well, my Bitcoin's not safe, you know. And to them, Bitcoin is everything. It's every cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Ethereum is Bitcoin. It's like going to the South and everything's Coke. What kind
Yeah,
of
it's
Coke would you
probably
like?
better not to like even push on that. Just let them, until they're really interested.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the videos of the guy going around giving truckers like $8,000 in Bitcoin in an envelope? He was just like, and did you guys see those
I did
videos?
not see
No.
that.
No, I
Okay,
didn't see it.
so there was BCH had their little flip starter, and I think that raised 1,000 BCH, but the BTC camp sort of did the same thing, and they just used a multi-sig wallet and like 5 trusted Canadian Bitcoiners. And they raised a significant amount. I don't remember how much it was off the top of my head. I think it was like 500,000. And so during the actual when the protest was going down in Ottawa, one guy who was in charge of distributing the money, he was physically going truck to truck, and he had $8,000 of Bitcoin like in an envelope with like the paper wallet and instructions on how to like get a wallet and then sweep the tokens out, like everything that the trucker would need who doesn't know a damn thing about Bitcoin, on how to like get their Bitcoin and then spend their Bitcoin. And so he was they did like, what was cool is there's this one trucker in particular who was in the process of filming in the truck, and then this guy came and gave it to him, and he was being filmed on the outside, so you got to see it from two different perspectives, and it was totally unplanned. It was just spontaneous. And yeah, it was such. And so I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, man, look at that. They completely circumvented the system with nothing more than an envelope and a handshake. There wasn't an app to download. There was no internet required. They printed out what they needed on a paper wallet, put it on an envelope, and then physically delivered it to the people who needed it.
And David just posted a great little opinion piece in the Telegram on eCash, so you guys can check that out. And if you are not on our Telegram, it's t.me / is it PS Foundation or Permissionless Software Foundation?
It's permissionless_software is our Telegram channel.
So t.me / permissionless_software for those who want to follow the Telegram. Yeah, it was
just mention. I just put one link in the chat for you. This Zoom chat. When we close it, it will disappear. So if you want, copy it somewhere. Yeah.
I got it in the browser. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was interesting having this trucker stuff go on, being in East Denver, seeing all these different people, just so many different people working on the blockchain, but also there's people that are just chasing money. It seems like a lot of the Silicon Valley is just pouring into the blockchain space now, like they were pouring into Web 2.
I wanted to ask you about that, Aaron. Is so not having attended but it seemed like there's obviously a lot of buzz, a lot of VC money, and like hot tech stuff when ETH Denver started. But then this whole Canadian trucker thing kind of happened, and so I'm sure like a lot of the talk and a lot of focus moved to uncensorable money and communication and stuff like that. Did it feel like a juxtaposition, like everybody was there for the hot tech and money, but then all of a sudden there's this like unavoidable like social conversation that had to happen?
Really?
Or did people go into it like, yeah, we need to be uncensorable money? And
it was a weird mixed bag. I wouldn't say that things shifted so much as like people had talking points that they're like, these are our talking points. And so my buddy Ryda, he does the show with Stoyan and I, the Roots Up, and he started the Cyber Panther Party, and they're about like justice reform through technology. They cover like bail funds. His friend got wrongly accused of murder and was in jail for 1.5 years awaiting trial. And so he started up this foundation to help people like him And so they're definitely in the minority communities, or how do they say it, like the underprivileged class or whatever. And it was funny to everybody's talking about how I want to help the underprivileged class or the minorities or X, Y, but nobody's really putting their money where the mouth is. It seems like they just want to code away and be like, now they're helped, And meanwhile, nobody's actually meeting with these people or doing things with these people. And I got to see it from the minority community's perspective and the frustration where it's like, you're saying this and then you're doing another. So there was a lot of that. There was some genuineness. Surprisingly, not as many people were talking about the truckers as I thought would be. It was more like, we got to save the environment, and meanwhile there's like 5 dumpsters full of crap outside the arena. And those were some frustrating things where it was like a little bit of hypocrisy, where it's like everybody I talked to was like, we're not here to make money. Then why are you really here? Like,
Then who's paying for all this?
Yeah. It was literally like, we're not about money, we're about making change. And it's like, okay, well, how are you making
not a lot of money in
change in your
social justice.
relationship? Yeah. It was, so many people are convinced that they got to make this change to the world, this global change. And I'm sitting here like, start with your friends, start with your family, start with your relationships you have. But that can be challenging to work with those relationships. And it's much easier to work with the faceless, nameless world and think you're making an impact.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, that's a good report, man.
there was definitely plenty of good stuff there. There's a lot of people celebrating, and there was a lot of people that are trying to do some great things. And a lot of it happened in the events going on around ETH Denver, because there was ETH Denver and then there's a lot of events around ETH Denver. But there's just a lot of money flowing around, and a lot of VCs chasing the next thing. And some of it's literally was like watching Silicon Valley, if you've ever seen that show. And like, they're just chasing after the dumbest things sometimes. And you're like, that has nothing to do with anything. It's not going anywhere, but
Yeah, it's just seeking
the
money
hot
for
thing.
money's sake.
Yeah.
You're doing silly things because you think there's money in it.
And
The
I mean,
main craziness seems to go to the NFTs. It's like unbelievably crazy. Like especially with this, we will donate 5% of our profits to something. So buy our NFT for 1 ETH. Like, okay, like, yeah, you will make profit from this enough, I think.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
was a lot of that and a lot of NFT talk, but it's still a lot in the art phase. I mean, there is some in the gaming phase. Polygon's making a big push in that direction because they're cheaper. But for how long? If they get congested, how long are they going to be cheaper? I don't know. The 1155 standard makes it easier to do some gamify stuff. There was a lot in the VR, AR stuff, like that's starting to pick up, so that was cool to see. There's a company I'm talking with on Thursday called Mr. Augmented, and they're attempting to do augmented reality, but where like you can see the same thing that other people are seeing, but that takes mapping the world and using computer vision that way.
Yeah. Well, speaking of NFTs, something I wanted to just share here. I talked about this before we started recording, and I'm going to talk about this more in the future, but this is just tickling me pink. I just love this idea the more I think about it. But so I'm going to share my screen real quick. This is a prototype that I've shown before of the mutable data specification for tokens. How like you have the token icon on the top, and then it shows the immutable data and then the mutable data. So immutable, you can't change it, it's static and fixed. Mutable, you can change it. So the idea there is that it's like some of these OPSEC videos I'm going to produce or have produced and going to produce more. I am planning on them getting deplatformed. Like I'm planning to be deplatformed in the future. I think that if we are successful, then GitHub will deplatform us. YouTube will deplatform us. Like if these things happen in the future, it will be a sign of the success of the Permissionless Software Foundation. And so to sort of fight that deplatforming and that type of censorship, this idea I came up with is to make those videos into an NFT where the immutable portion, the portion that's fixed at the time of the token's creation, will have links to like the YouTube and the Rumble and the Odyssey and the Filecoin upload. So basically upload it to as many platforms as I can, and then put those links into the immutable portion, which is, like I said, fixed and will never change. And so like the YouTube is probably the most convenient. So you provide that for convenience, but it's also the most likely to be deplatformed. And so, you go down the list until you get to like Filecoin or something that's like probably impossible to censor. And so what I'm thinking about doing once we get the decks up is I'll offer these NFTs for sale for like $10. And I'll use Stoyan's code to basically make a really good, to basically link all these NFTs together so that you can basically peruse the list of videos by perusing the list of NFTs. You don't actually have to own it. So the content's free, the information is free. And why would someone buy one of these NFTs? Well, my idea is, and this is what I'm excited to prove out, is that if I make a video, say, on how to do end-to-end encrypted chat, step-by-step directions, and that gets deplatformed, like that's going to make the NFT even more valuable. And the person who owns the NFT, which there can only be one, is sort of saying with their money that I think this video is valuable, and I'm going to be the steward of this NFT that helps everybody, get access to it. And so if the price of the NFT rises, I think what that will show is that more people, or there's more demand for the token. And the reason there's more demand for the token is because the video that token represents is seen as valuable and worthy of protecting and preserving. So it's this weird idea of that, like, price reflects social desire to protect the content.
Yeah.
And so I'll remains to be seen if that hypothesis proves out with time.
Only way to find out is to put it out there.
Yeah.
Chris, you can take a look on the Aave recently is doing great stuff. You know about their lens protocol?
I've heard it in passing, but yeah, tell me about it.
So it's basically they are expanding this idea. They want to make something like a social media where everything is NFT. Your profile is NFT, your social connections are NFT, everything will be NFT. So it will be pretty much decentralized in every way. So
Yeah.
you can take maybe some of their code, because it will be again connecting media to NFT, like this social graph.
Yeah.
And so you can combine it with your idea about the videos and make something really interesting.
I mean, that's definitely where my thinking is going as well. Is that like everything becomes an NFT? Like these NFTs become like the next social media platform, essentially.
So
Yeah.
the link is just Lens Protocol Aave. It's still very new. It's still like working on this. There is no even the real site. It's just ideas, some like prototypes. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'll check them out because like I've heard of them, but like this idea transcends any particular technology. So definitely want to read up on their thoughts around that.
We have Darwin Evo in the chat says, "Wish I was there." I think he's talking about ETH Denver, and it was a DeFi conference. Yeah, it totally was a DeFi conference. It was just funny to have these people that are obviously in finance be like, this is not the real reason we're here. You know, like we're totally here to change the world, not make a lot of money. And, you know, I talked to, there was somebody I was like, yeah, I want to, you know, build this company and make money. And well, money is not what I'm really about. How do you pay your bills then? You know,
Mhm.
like, so
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
a DeFi conference, but it was, I'm still digesting a lot of the stuff that I experienced there. So
Yeah. I mean, I think this has been a thing in the entire crypto industry where it's like there's this idea that social justice and money's the root of all evil, and it's like it's obviously about money, but it's not about money. And it's like
Yeah.
just everybody's so bipolar, and very few people are just in the middle where it's like, this is about money, this is literally about money, and I need to make money, but I also want to, you know, change the system, and I believe in social justice as well. Like, it doesn't have to be an either or thing.
yeah. I see that a lot, that either or type of thing. But you know, also to say, even though it was a DeFi conference, NFTs were everything they talked about.
Mhm.
Everybody's doing an NFT. Everybody's creating an NFT. Everybody's making NFTs. They're going to NFT the world. And, you know, it's weird to see which protocols they're trying to use. I would like to see more function, like now that the SLP database is going up. I think that gives a good use case for NFTs on the BCH side, and I'm going to experiment with that as well with different JSON and see if I can get the 3D aspect working on the BCH side, like I got it working on the Ethereum side. You know, so that you can actually pull up stuff into the browser and interact with 3D objects with SLP NFT.
Very cool. Yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah, I think that SLP mutable data library needs to, a few more things need to fall into place before someone like you should get too deep into it. But
Yeah, I was looking
yeah,
at
I'm
it.
excited to help you with that.
There's quite a lot of things to track when keeping up with the IPFS, like an IPNS, is it, like the content, and then trying to figure out where you're putting your stuff, you know, your
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. Like, I've heard that they've made improvements with IPFS, but I pretty much or IPNS, and I pretty much avoid it because it's usually, especially with the infrastructure we're building, it's usually faster just to look it up on the BCH blockchain to basically fulfill the feature that IPNS does. You can just do the same thing on the Bitcoin Cash chain. So that's almost like if you go to paperwallet.fullstack.cash, you can see what I'm talking about, where it'll just throw up a splash page and then it'll look up on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain what the most up-to-date version of the thing is on Filecoin, and then it'll forward you to the Filecoin web page.
Yeah, because that's how you did your website that way too, right?
Yeah, and so that's essentially the feature. The IPNS is the ability to basically something that you can update that points to an IPFS file, and that's what I'm using the Bitcoin Cash blockchain for.
It was the only problem is it's just been traditionally slow to resolve.
Yeah.
But like what Chris is talking about, Sam, I don't know if you saw where he did the website through Web3.storage, where he had an HTML page, and then the HTML page referenced the transaction for the most recent blog post data. That's very similar to the mutable protocol for the token, where the token will have an IPFS payload, and then that will reference a transaction to look for the updated information on the token, essentially.
oh
And
So another little thing that I've developed just in the last few days there is, so in this Filecoin Web3 world where everything's content addressed, if you send someone a link, the link is static. So if you update the page, like on my blog, if I send somebody a link to my blog, to like one of my blog articles, and then I go back and I edit that, they're not going to know because they're looking at an old static version of the thing. And that's the nice thing about location-based addressing in Web 2 is that all just automatically handles itself. So I created a component, a React component on my blog. So if someone's looking at an older version of like a blog post, it'll pop up a big red thing in the top saying, this is an old version, like click here to go to the new version. So that's kind of cool because this is like a new like this is a problem that content address content has that location based content does not have.
Yeah, and it's a something that I'm constantly studying as well as because my goal is to release 3D content, 3D assets, and things like that. Well, how do you update them? How do you work with them? One of my big questions right now that I have to just sit down and take time to do is like, what does the size of the file need to be to pop up on OpenSea and marketplaces fast enough? And then how do I deliver the full size file to somebody that buys it so they can 3D print or do 3D modeling in Blender or ZBrush or anything like that?
Mhm.
And what is the best way to go about that? With SLP, I can easily just attach in the right into the line the hash of the IPFS for display. Great. And then I can use that same address if they buy it to airdrop a token quite easily. With Ethereum, you can do the same thing. It just costs more and there's a little bit more involved.
Yeah, so there's that's a good way to do it, of just being able to essentially like that token becomes like a homing beacon, and so you can airdrop updates. But also with this mutable data spec, if you push an update, like, so there's the token and then there's the address that controls the mutable data, and you as a creator would retain that. And so if you needed to push an update, that would automatically happen. Like nobody would need to do anything. You wouldn't necessarily need to do anything other than just push the update.
Yeah.
And when people interact with that token, it would just automatically use the most recent data.
See, and I like that idea for like code calls eventually,
It's how to see complicated topic because sometimes maybe you don't want to use the last version. Like the SIA guys, they're doing very interesting stuff. When I check this home screen, you can copy the whole JavaScript code to you, and it will show you that it's updated, but it's up to you to update. So it's required action from your side. It will be not always pointing to the last version. It will point to the one that you want.
Yeah, that's a good point. And actually, that's totally possible with this mutable data spec, because what you're actually looking at is this transaction history of the address with Filecoin hashes. So you can always get back to a previous version. And every previous version is
important, because
documented.
if you make a mistake with the last one, you need to be able to go back one version maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all you'd have to do in that case is broadcast a transaction with the previous IPFS hash, and then it would revert. And then another thing that I was thinking about as you're talking, like, okay, if I sell this thing, I could also essentially sell ownership of the transition by putting. So it looks at that wallet address for the transaction. And then if I put another transaction with JSON script in it that says, okay, now look at this wallet address. Yes, it becomes a chain, but I could essentially sell that or give that to whoever owns the asset to create a mutable, to continue on with the mutable data,
Yeah, I mean, this gets back to the trust merchant idea, which is like, as a creator, you want to retain this, but maybe you're not tech savvy, so you want to hire that out.
Yep.
And then like what you just said, like there could be a whole secondary market for just that mutable, the ability to change the mutable data.
Yeah. It's a lot of things to think about when it comes to selling products and services this way. And I think it is all heading this direction. It's just how do we figure it out? What's the best process? What's going to work best for people? Different industries are going to have different use cases, and I think they're going to be using different chains for those different use cases. So it's just, you know, understanding those protocols and being able to operate fast and evolve fast as it evolves.
All right, guys. Well, it's been about an hour and 15 minutes. I think we should wrap this up.
All right.
Does anybody have any closing thoughts before we call it a day? Okay, well, I just want you guys to know I really appreciate your attendance, and the couple people who've already dropped off. Like, just really, the more the merrier. Really appreciate, particularly not the quantity, but the quality. I really appreciate all you guys. You guys all really bring something to the table, and that's why I appreciate you being here.
Well, we appreciate you, Chris.
Same, yeah. Likewise.
Yeah, Sam, good to have you on today, man.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to hit the transition, and then we can wrap a little bit afterwards.